if we look at the tides, we know that the moon cycles affect water. I mean, they affect water very clearly, right? So
Yeah.
this is not like controversial, like, oh, we don't think the tides have anything to do with the moon. The tides have to do with the moon. Everyone agrees upon that, right? And we are made up mostly of water. So it makes perfect sense that within our bodies, we might feel differently based on the cycles of the moon, just for example.
I also wanted to know about plant medicine. I mean, plant medicine and quantum drops. I mean, what are they? And I mean, if you can give me some background of that, because people don't know what exactly is plant medicine. You talk about mother plant. I forget. Like
Master plants.
master plant. Yeah. So
So, yeah, I just wrote a book. Actually, my second book is called The Master Plant Experience, and it's on
okay.
Amazon. And it it's a whole story how I ended up getting involved in that, but I'm already an herbalist. And so I've already worked with plants and plant consciousness and kind of the relationship with between humans and plant allies for many, many years. And I was going to study more about it. Actually, the same son who had been sick as a baby had another health challenge related to mold. And that ended up sending me on a whole journey, which took me to Ecuador, where I started to learn about these plants. That wasn't the reason that I went, but it became part of the experience for me. And master plants are plants that are powerful, that change human consciousness and behavior. So they're called masters because they're considered ancient teachers that help us learn how to navigate being human. And my book focuses on psychedelic master plants,
Oh,
like ayahuasca and mushrooms and San Pedro and things like that. But master plants are not only psychedelic. Master plants include like cacao and coffee, right? Plants that are powerful. That, think about what we will all do, right? For our coffee or our tea that we love or chocolate, right? We'll go quite a bit out of our way and have all these rituals associated with it. So I went through the science and the indigenous wisdom that goes back millennia around what these masters can offer. And what I discovered in doing that is that we don't actually have to ingest these big doses as people think. I mean, we're seeing tremendous and actually life-saving benefit for some people who have very difficult to treat conditions, chronic pain, major depression, addiction of all kinds, very serious addictions, OCD, sexual trauma, right? Like the whole gamut. But then there are all these other people it looks like that could benefit. And we're looking now at microdosing for things like dementia, for things like ALS and Parkinson's and other conditions. And then the quantum drops were actually something that I developed. So I grow a lot of these plants, not to consume them, but to be in relationship with them, learn about them. And with those plants, we created a vibrational dose. And this is something that indigenous culture has worked with for a long time. The
like
vibrational,
homeopathy. Homeopathy is something similar, no? Kind of.
it's like an essence in a sense. It's not exactly, it doesn't contain any of the plant matter. So it's totally legal. It doesn't have any alcohol. It doesn't have anything that would be harmful to children, for example, because there are a lot of parents who have reached out and said, well, could I use psychedelics or master plants for my children? And we really don't know from a scientific perspective the safety and if it's the right thing to do for young children. Although in indigenous cultures, sometimes young children did have those exposures, it was considered okay. But vibrationally, it's something that we can do very safely. So these quantum drops are, we have the grandmother, the grandfather, and the children, which are totally safe, totally legal, but we've seen very profound shifts for all different kinds of people, including children. And it's been very exciting, right? Because it's something that is accessible to anybody, including, some people are very sensitive, even adults are very sensitive, and big doses of these kind of mind altering substances might not be the right choice for them, or at least not right now. So this is something that can allow people to start to have these shifts and this neuroplasticity without having to, I don't know, travel to Peru or, do some kind of very big experience that might not be the right thing for them right now.
So these quantum drops are available on your website for purchase?
They are, and here I have some right next to me. Actually, I take them. We have the grandfather,
Grandfather.
the children, and grandmother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And you are also an astrologer and you believe in the planets, right? I mean, so many things. So, most of the parents who come to me, they say, whenever it's a new moon, whenever it's a full moon, the kids are, the behaviors are really different than on other days. Do you believe in this? And what is your opinion about this?
Well, so just to say about astrology, I mean, that's a whole story how I got involved with astrology. I practice ancient astrology. And to me, astrology is not something we believe in or we don't believe in. It's just a language. It's a language. Science is a language that describes these processes, and astrology is a different kind of language that describes, right, mystery. It describes what we can't see, just like
Mhm.
science.
Mm.
Um, and most people don't know that actually the best doctors for millennia, really, I mean, since we have written records, doctors actually were expected to know astrology.
Oh,
Leaders of countries, governments depended on astrology. It's in all kinds of ancient texts, Greek and Indian and um, Persian and Arabic. So I study ancient astrology. I don't. I'm less involved in modern astrology, and I think it's a very interesting and extremely technical language, which I find just fascinating. And I think it's important to always be exploring and looking at different systems of looking at the world, because it just gives you a more robust perspective. But in terms of the moon cycles, so one reason that people can notice real changes around the moon cycle can be actually parasites. So different things change with the moon cycle. I
parasite.
mean, we know parasites, yeah. So
Oh,
yeah, well, I'll get to that in a second. But, if we look at the tides, we know that the moon cycles affect water. I mean, they affect water very clearly, right? So
yeah.
this is not like controversial, like, oh, we don't think the tides have anything to do with the moon. The tides have to do with the moon. Everyone agrees upon that, right? And we are made up mostly of water. So it makes perfect sense that within our bodies, we might feel differently based on the cycles of the moon, just for example, right? And when it comes to these patterns that might come up around moon cycles, a commonly discussed one is actually parasites, that parasites tend to uh, reproduce and be more active at certain phases of the moon cycle, new moon, full moon, etc. And so sometimes if a person is very, affected or feels much, much worse or more agitated around a full moon or a new moon, that may be something that's coming up. Now, I am not a person who thinks all parasites are always bad or that we have to kill every parasite in our body. I actually don't think that. And, that's a deeper conversation. But it goes back to the diversity of the microbiome, that we've learned that even parasites of all kinds, having exposure to parasites is actually protective. But that's only true if they're not growing out of control in your body, right? So it's, as with everything, it has to do with the terrain, right? The terrain of the person. But that said, there are different things to think about, including something like parasite replication. If somebody's noticing with, let's say, moon cycles and so on, something physiologically being interrupted, or in terms of behavior. But absolutely, there are correlations. I don't think the planets cause anything. I don't think it's like, oh, Mars is making me, you know what I mean? It's not like that. It's just talking about the planets is describing the kinds of energies we're experiencing in our bodies and around us. And it gives us a sense of how to talk about those energies. So we are experiencing those energies, and the planets are the ancients developed a language that describes those very same energies. Neither one is causing the energies. The energies are just the energies, right? What we experience. So, yeah, it's been very interesting to me because I think one of the most important tools that we can have in our lives around challenge, whether it's challenges that come up with our children, challenges that come up with ourselves or our families or, the world. I mean, we're human. Being human is not an easy undertaking. And for most of us. And the key, and this is something that ancient mystics believed, and it's something I believe, is that making meaning is one of the most important things we can do. And this is something I write about a lot in my most recent book, in the Master Plant Experience, is meaning making and how do we find meaning in challenge, right? And how do we become better, right? And create, rather than just being knocked down by these hard experiences that might come up in our lives in any number of ways, to understand how to alchemize it into wisdom and a sense of purpose, so that we can, that's, making meaning, to be of service to ourselves and to the world in ways small or large.
Wow. I never knew about parasites. This is a very big thing for me.
Uh,
So I'm really curious, if someone has to reach out to you and if they come to you with their child, one is, do you still do individual consultations? And if they come to you, is it going to be about conventional medicine? Is it going to be about, like, how do they reach out to you? What do they expect? As in, like, what would they get? Uh, Medications or plant-based medicine, or what diet? How would it be?
so I do very minimal amounts of one-on-one neurology consults anymore. I do a lot of teaching. So I train, for example, psychedelic informed practitioners. Not because I think everyone should be giving psychedelics, and not because I think everyone should be getting psychedelics, but because I think we should all be educated about what they can offer, what they can't offer, and who might need macro, micro, or quantum dosing, right?
Mm.
Things like that, especially because, people like you and me over our careers see a lot of children and maybe also adults who have conditions that can't be treated with conventional means. So from a one-on-one standpoint, I will see people, and what I call it is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual consultation, right? Where it's kind of a one-time, we talk, I give suggestions, I hear their story, I give suggestions, and then I might guide them to certain things, I might direct them in certain directions, I might make some various recommendations. Um, and that's been, it's hard to not be doing as much one-on-one neurology consultations for a number of reasons, but you know I think that there are a lot of ways to help people. And for example, with quantum drops, one of the things I've noticed for families that have children who have autism or who have other kinds of conditions that they're struggling with is having both the parent or parents and the child take the quantum drops. So I do quantum drop consultations where people actually will come and ask questions, and we'll map out something for them. And it can include sometimes diet and other things. I mean, I have a wide amount of knowledge, and it's not like I just dismiss this knowledge, but I don't like prescribe pharmaceuticals or, right. Um, like I always recommend people have another doctor, and expect people to have another doctor caring for them. And I kind of come in and make recommendations and suggestions. And I think it is helpful. I think it is helpful for people to have that, you know, open
Yeah.
their eyes to various things and try
Mhm.
different things. So, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. And how can they reach out to you on your website?
The best
Or
way is just go to drmaya.com, drmaya.com. And on there, there's a contact page, and you just reach out that way. And, either I or my team will receive it. I'm also pretty active on Instagram, so people can kind of see periodically, like podcasts or different things I'm doing. Um, and they can kind of get some insight. I'm very active in my stories there too.
wow. Thank you, Dr. Maya. This was an amazing session, and you're doing amazing, amazing, very different kind of work. Amazing session. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for talking to me. It was awesome, wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Mhm.